The 2024 election has come and gone, and whether you like it or not, Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States. For many, that reality might be hard to accept, and to be fair, the man has made plenty of enemies over the years. His political rhetoric, his unconventional style, and his adversarial relationship with the media have left deep divisions across the country. But the fact remains, he has won the presidency and will once again occupy the White House in just a few short months. So what does that mean for us average Americans? Will the Democrats choose to fight against the inevitable, or can we all agree to put our differences aside, congratulate President Trump, and advocate for the best outcomes possible in this next administration? We should praise the good and condemn the bad, regardless of how we personally feel about the man in charge. In today's video, I'm going to share my thoughts on how I'm going to approach a second Trump presidency as someone who didn't really resonate with either candidate in the 2024 election. I'll also touch on my personal hopes and expectations for what we'll see come out of a second Trump presidency over the next 4 years. Let's start with the reality check for anyone who still needs to hear it. Trump won a free and fair election. The election is over and the decision has been made. I know, a lot of people feel like their worst fears have been realized. Some are bracing for a storm while others are waiting for democracy as we know it to come to an end. But no matter how you feel, the reality is we've been here before. We survived 4 years under his leadership, and whether you loved him or hated him back then, America kept moving forward. The country didn't descend into fascism or tyranny. Now, I'm not saying everything was perfect, far from it in fact, but the 2016 idea that the country wouldn't survive under Trump's leadership just didn't happen. Here's the thing, I truly hope he does well. I hope he leads this country to a strong and prosperous future, I really do. The average Trump voter and I most likely have differing views on his past actions and policies, especially when it comes to how competent and effective he was as a president in his first term, and don't get me started on the 2020 election fraud claims. But at this point, I think it's in all of our best interest to want a good economy, safe and secure borders, and stability in our foreign relations. Those have been the MAGA promises this election cycle, and if Donald Trump can deliver on that, then more power to him. On the domestic front, I think we can all agree that Americans are feeling a struggle. The economy is still recovering from the pandemic, inflation is a concern, and the immigration system seems to be a mess. I'm skeptical when it comes to his economic plan of focusing so heavily on tariffs. I understand that they're useful in incentivizing more production to take place in the US, but unemployment hasn't been the big concern in this economy. It's been the rising cost of goods due to things like inflation. Placing high tariffs on cheap imports seems like it will only lead to higher prices in the short run. Even if the production of those goods does move to the US, it's more expensive to produce things here. That's why we import them. So those goods will still end up being more expensive than they are right now. I'm assuming the Trump team has more economic policies they plan to implement as well, but throughout his campaign he didn't really speak to what those policies are. Hopefully we'll get more information on that soon. On the point of the border, if Trump can eliminate the asylum loophole through legislation and secure additional funding for our border security, I think he would effectively solve 80 to 90% of the immigration crisis we have right now. That would be the bare minimum I'd expect for him to be able to claim that he secured the border. I also think it would be a major win to have some kind of bipartisan review of the immigration process in general. I would support an effort to allow more stable, productive, self-sufficient, and non-criminal immigrants come to this country and seek their opportunity. That would be a huge across-the-aisle win for Trump and for all Americans. It would go a long way to showing that the problem people have with illegal immigrants now is that they aren't vetted. I'm not sure how likely it is that he would have any interest in pursuing something like that, but if we're going to be making changes to our immigration policy anyway, I think it would be nice to see some changes that would make it easier for law-abiding, self-sufficient immigrants to come here. Now, a lot of talk has surrounded Project 2025, and based on the number of times it was brought up during the election season, I have a feeling we're going to be hearing about it from the media quite often for the next few years. For anyone who's unfamiliar, Project 2025 is a 920-page proposed plan created by a right-wing think tank called the Heritage Foundation. It's essentially a document they put out full of policies and plans that they want the Republican Party to implement. Because of this, a lot of people think Trump is going to turn America into some sort of authoritarian regime that pushes extreme right-wing policies. But personally, I think Trump has distanced himself from that vision many times throughout his campaign. Trump is not and never has been what I would call a conservative Republican. He took over the Republican Party with his own MAGA brand of populist politics, and he's bucked against old-school conservative ideals like being against gay marriage. I don't think it's very likely that Trump himself wants to carry out Project 2025 as a full agenda. God knows he definitely doesn't want to read the whole thing, but that's not going to stop the Democrats from fear-mongering over it for the next 4 years. I think some of it will get blown out of proportion by the media, and we'll see a lot of exaggerated claims about his policies that might overlap with some of the things included in Project 2025. The other big concern people have about Trump is regarding women's reproductive rights. When it comes to abortion, I really don't think Trump wants to ban it nationwide. The truth is, a national abortion ban would be political suicide for the GOP for like a decade. If Trump tried to push that through, or if a Republican Congress put forward a bill that he didn't veto, we'd see a massive backlash in the form of not just a blue wave, but a blue tsunami. It's just not a winning issue for Republicans, especially when we're talking about a country as divided as we are. I don't think he'll go there. He's said it a million times. He thinks it should be decided by the states, and for now, I think that's fine. When it comes to foreign policy, I'm really not sure what to expect from the next Trump administration. We're already seeing how Trump's relationships with foreign leaders, particularly Vladimir Putin, are going to be under extreme scrutiny by the media. I'm worried, to be honest, that the adversarial relationship between the media and Trump will nudge his decision-making on these matters in whatever direction will be the biggest FU to the media. Whatever ends up happening in Ukraine will set the tone to the rest of the world. It's such a delicate situation, and while I'm no foreign policy expert, it makes me feel really uneasy when Trump praises Putin as a strong leader and says he gets along real well with him. I know bringing an end to the Russia-Ukraine conflict would be a huge win for Trump, but I think we need a president who's willing to stand firm against authoritarian regimes and not back down out of political convenience. I hope that Trump can be that leader, but I'm cautious. And then there's the Middle East. We all know that region has been a hotspot for decades. It seems like there's always something brewing over there, especially with the Israel-Gaza conflict and now the trouble with Iran. I hope Trump can navigate this situation in a way that brings some peace and stability, but let's be honest, this is a complicated mess and there's no simple solution to be found. My particular worry is an all-out war with Iran. Trump has credited them with at least one of the assassination attempts against him, and Israel is on the verge of declaring war as it is. I think between Trump and Kamala, Trump articulated a stronger desire for peace and de-escalation, specifically stating that he did not want a war with Iran, so hopefully his administration can figure something out there. I'm trying to remain optimistic about foreign affairs over the next 4 years, but I have a sinking feeling that no matter who won the White House, the US is in for some turbulence on the world stage. Overall, the biggest challenge for Trump and for the rest of us is going to be unity. We can all sit here and hope for better policy or better leadership, but we also need to realize that the division in this country is palpable. People are frustrated, they're angry, and they feel unheard. Whether you're on the left or the right, there's a growing sense that our leaders are more interested in fighting each other than actually solving problems. This might be total cope, but I'm hoping Trump will take a different approach in his second term than he did in his first. I'm hoping he'll move away from the constant finger-pointing and political warfare. It would be amazing to see what would happen if he actually tried to bring the country together. But if I'm being honest, I'm not holding my breath. I also can't really blame him for responding how he does to the constant media attacks against him. If it were all fair criticism, that would be one thing, but in my estimation, at least 50% of the media coverage he gets is hyperbolized fear-mongering about how he's a unique threat to the country and that he's motivated by some fundamental hatred of marginalized groups. What I do think is essential, though, is that the media and political leaders from both sides, whether it's Trump or anyone else, need to shift the rhetoric to a more positive direction. Instead of fanning the flames of division, we need leadership who will focus on unity. That's what the country desperately needs. Look, I don't know what the future holds under a second Trump presidency. Maybe he'll surprise me, maybe he won't. But what I do know is that as Americans, we have a responsibility to hope for the best and always work towards a better future. It's easy to get caught up in the negativity, the partisanship, and the constant fighting, but what we can't afford to do is give up on the idea of working for a better future. So whether you like Trump or not, whether you voted for him or not, he will be your next president, and we need to support him as he works to lead this country. I don't know about you, but I'm going to hope that he ends up being a great president for all Americans. That doesn't mean give up on advocating for what you believe in, but if America's going to heal, we have to do that with the understanding that we all want what's best for the country. We just disagree with how to get there. But what do I know? I'm just some guy on the internet. Let me know in the comments what you think about Trump winning the election and what you expect out of him in the next 4 years. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and until next time, stay mid.